Hello and welcome back to the channel. So, I've lived in Edinburgh for about 4 years now, and I thought I'd share with you today some of the major things that have stuck out to me about living in Edinburgh over that time. So, maybe if you're considering moving here, you're moving here in September for university, these are the things you can expect. Now, there are many great things about living in Edinburgh, and I'm sure I'm going to touch on those at some point, but I'm mostly just making this video to bitch about things that annoy me, to be honest. So I'll start off with a pretty minor gripe, and this is probably more just a living in a city thing in general, and it's probably only something I noticed because I'm from such a small village, but it is so goddamn loud here. I live in the centre of Edinburgh, you know, big flex, and I swear about 3.5 million sirens go past my house every day. So next time you're considering, I don't know, having a street fight or falling down the stairs or maybe setting fire to your washing machine by accident, if you could just not, that would be great, and then it would make the city a whole lot quieter. Another really minor thing that annoys me about living in Edinburgh is the way that people cross the road, right? So I believe every city has a slightly different way of doing it. So in Glasgow, you basically just wait until enough of you gang up on the side of the road and then you just plough out into oncoming traffic. I mean, what's the underpaid Uber driver driving along gonna do? Mow you down? Probably not, with safety in numbers. But in Edinburgh, we do things a wee bit differently. I believe as soon as we approach a curb, we evolutionarily regress. So that these and these, they just become meaningless. No joke, the other day I saw this middle-aged woman on crutches. So you know this woman was not making a quick getaway. She's there, she hobbles over to the side of the road and then just yeets herself into oncoming traffic. The whole road genuinely had to grind to a halt because this woman was just completely oblivious to what was going on around her. Saying that, I was also nearly run over the other day, so I can't really judge. I am 100% guilty of this as well. I think we all are, but it's just something that's really stuck out to me since I've lived in Edinburgh. To be fair, I think a lot of the reason people just don't pay attention when it comes to crossing the road in Edinburgh is, even if you do pay attention, there's still a good chance you're going to get hit by something. I've heard that in Amsterdam, when you cross the road, you look left, you look right, you look into the future, you still get hit by a bike. But again, things are a wee bit different in Edinburgh. Here, if you're on a paved surface, you've got about a 74% chance of getting run over by something on wheels. I mean, people ride around Edinburgh like it's a Tony Hawk Pro Skater level. It's like, aye, why not ride your bike on the pavement or turn Bristow Square into a skate park? It's a great plan, why not? The other day, I saw a fully grown woman riding a scooter, and I'm not talking an electric scooter, because admittedly those are actually kind of cool. I'm talking a push scooter that you give to a 5-year-old. She's just riding this down the pavement, slaloming in and out of people like Lionel Messi versus Getafe in 2007. Okay, that was a very niche reference, but the point is she mildly inconvenienced me, and I felt the need to talk about that on the internet. This next thing, it might, if it's possible, be an even more minor gripe. And again, this might just be more of a city thing in general, but the streets in Edinburgh are so uneven. There are a lot of cobblestones, but I can kind of appreciate those, you know? They're old, they fit with the architecture, they were installed in the past when it was impressive to live past the age of 35, but even with the newer concrete slabs, some of those can still be a good 3 centimetres off from each other. Because the slabs are so uneven, sometimes when you step on them, they move. It's like you're on skipping stones in Takeshi's castle, and then, because they move, water from underneath scooshes up, that covers your white trainers, and no matter how hard you scrub, you're never going to get those stains out. So, City of Edinburgh Council, if you're watching this, do something about it, sort it out. Another thing that my mates and I cannot stand is the silent discos that happen on the street during the Fringe. If there's one thing that I could outlaw, it would definitely be the use of offshore accounts by the 1% to avoid tax. But in a close second, it'd be those goddamn street discos. If you can't envisage what these entail, effectively you'll have 2 people in very tight spandex clothes dishing out headphones to day-drunk punters so they can all scream "Come on Eileen" as they clog up the street. Sounds like fun? Well, it isn't. Every year, thousands of people are mildly inconvenienced on their way to work, so for that reason, you're never going to catch me as part of a street disco. Now, I'm going to go through a few rapid fire things that people do complain about that don't really bother me as much. So rent, yes, it is expensive. It's more expensive in Edinburgh than it is pretty much anywhere else in Scotland. But at the end of the day, you are living in one of the best cities in the UK, if not the world, depending on the metrics and the sources you use. Now, that doesn't excuse terrible landlords, and they are rife in this city, but luckily I'm quite privileged, I've never had to deal with that, fortunately. Going out for drinks, it can be quite expensive in Edinburgh, but it really just depends where you go. If you know the places, you can get good deals. I would say probably I pay less for whiskey and pints in Edinburgh than I do elsewhere, so if you don't want to pay too much, do a wee bit of research before you go out. Everyone likes to complain about the weather in Edinburgh. Honestly, it isn't that bad. I mean, the prevailing wind direction in Scotland is southwesterly, so most of the weather blows in from the Atlantic, and therefore most of the rain falls on Glasgow, so it doesn't actually rain as much as you would probably think in Edinburgh. I also know a lot of locals, they like to complain about tourists, and to those people I say, without tourists, Edinburgh pretty much wouldn't have an economy. So, more power to the tourists. Come and visit, Edinburgh's brilliant. And I'm going to cap off this video by going through a few things that I do love about living in this city. So to me, Edinburgh feels a wee bit more like a series of connected high streets than a city. So each part of Edinburgh, Tollcross, Morningside, Bruntsfield, Stockbridge, they've all got their own kind of main street. And each of these streets has their own wee independent shops and bars and cafes. And I really think this sets up Edinburgh to have a really good vibe. Everywhere you go, there's people sitting outside the pubs, sitting outside the restaurants, they're talking, they're laughing, people are having a good time in the city. So when you come to Edinburgh, don't just hang about Princes Street in the Mile. You need to go out, you need to explore a wee bit. It's not like when you're in Aberdeen and you step outside the city centre and you're just in a residential area. And it's not like in Glasgow where you're going to end up somewhere like Postle Park and you'll be stabbed. There's a lot of exciting places just outside of the city centre in Edinburgh. And that brings me on to another excellent thing about living in Edinburgh, the food. So Edinburgh, it's not as diverse as somewhere like London, but there's a large enough international community to have good cuisine from pretty much every corner of the globe. And there's a lot of vegan restaurants opening up as well, which is really good to see. One of my personal favourite things about living in Edinburgh is the amount of green space both in and around the city. So not only have you got the meadows for your barbecues and your drinks in summer, you've got Blackford Hill and Arthur's Seat for amazing views across the city. The Pentlands, they're just half an hour outside. I guess that really brings me on to my final point of the video, which is Edinburgh is an incredibly beautiful and majestic place to live. I work next to one of the most recognisable castles in the world. Every August, the Fringe, the world's largest international arts festival and the third largest ticketed event in the world, happens right on my doorstep. Every year, millions of people flock to Edinburgh for the architecture, the culture, the history, and you know, it does feel amazing to live in all that, even if I don't appreciate it all the time. So if you did enjoy the video, do give it a like. I might make a part 2 if I think about more things to say about living in Edinburgh. So if you want to see that, subscribe, and yeah, have a good one.